Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 143 of Discourse in Magic with Pipo Villanueva. This was an incredible episode because we talked about things like how to make your magic more emotional or more impactful or effective, or how to really get through to your audience and why that is so important. And we talked about so many different emotional aspects of magic. Things like giving your audience important moments or experiences during the course of the trick. Also, we spoke about giving those important moments and experiences and emotions to students of magic, as well as emotions, both positive and negative, that you go through in making magic and making your own magic. So I think you're going to love this episode. I surely did, and it gave me a lot to think about and plenty to work on. I hope you love it. Here it is, episode 143 of Discourse in Magic with Pipo Villanueva. We are here with the incredible Pipo Villanueva.
Fantastic.
Amazing. Okay, how are you?
Very good. Thank you. It is a pleasure to be talking to you.
I'm super excited to chat with you and to have you on and to talk. So I'm very excited to be able to really iron out some details. So let's start at the very beginning. How did you get started in magic?
Oh, actually, that's a good question. It's by chance. Actually, I started in magic pretty late. My case is not the typical case of a kid singing magic and thinking that that's the thing that I'm going to be with my life.
Mm-hmm.
I was focused in music during my early years, and as when I was in the mid 20s, I just got very frustrated and stopped performing music. So I magic just entered by chance and just took over the place. But actually, I've been uh, exposed to magic in when I was a kid. I remember seeing Juan Tamariz in TV, and I remember seeing René Lavan also in national TV,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought it was great, but I never thought that it never came up to me that the idea that I was going to be able to do that or something that I would pursue in the late no. So it just by chance and somehow it actually uh, came together. It was for me. I've always worked with my hands, and I always uh, focused and develop my creativity. And if I don't do that, I get frustrated. So
Mm-hmm.
it was like mm, the thing to do. It was endless resources of work and creativity, and the thing only myself and my hands and a deck of cards was requested to just explore the universe. So it was great.
So did it sort of replace music for you in the sense of an art form, because it seems like it fulfills all of those things, like, you can work with it, you can work with your hands, you can be creative, there's endless to learn, you can like it feels like it mirrors a lot of those things. Or what
Exactly.
was so different that got you excited about magic that maybe you were struggling with music?
Well, it's exactly the case. It totally replaced my my eager to perform uh, art, right? Uh, what we replace
Mhm.
it's a very good thing. There's many. How can I put it? Was many things. One of the reasons that I got frustrated with music is because I require more people to be involved and to be committed to do a project, and also it was very hard for me to just put out in the world the work with my music. Yes, the resources you need are very high, and it's hard to put a rock band playing anywhere. No one wants
Mhm.
to hear that most of the time,
Mhm.
right? And with magic, I only needed myself. It was a exciting universe, even though at that very moment I wasn't even remotely aware of how deep was going to be the
Mhm.
thing. And also, it was something that is much more easy to just. For me, the good thing is to you have your lab at home and you create things and you study things and research things, and then you can put it on the real world on the corner. Just try something
Yeah.
that you came up with, and it's instantaneous. So the feedback is outstanding, and so you are always motivated to keep going. It can also, but by the same token, the frustrations are as
Endless.
as big as the rewards. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting because, right at the beginning of the interview, you're being very open about, all the joys that come from magic, but also all of the frustrations that it gives you and all of the struggles that it gives you. And to be honest, I've been doing magic all my life, but it's only sort of been my career and also my full-time obsession, for about 3 or 4 years now.
Uh-huh.
And I have started to grow to see some of those things, right? I have grown to become very frustrated in different areas of magic, and some areas where like I can work towards it and try to find a solution, but other areas where I just sort of have to cross my arms and say, "Oh, this is awful."
Hmm.
So why are you bringing up frustration
Oh.
so early in art form? Because it doesn't sound like nobody else is really doing that. So why is frustration such an important topic in art, and how do we learn to work with it instead of getting knocked over by it?
Yeah, I think it's an avoidable part of the process, very necessary part, right? As Gaby Paredes puts it, he says, I think it happens with any other art form or any other meaningful thing in life. He says that magic puts your worst of you, your drawbacks and your fears in front of you, and you put it in front of your face. I mean, if you are boring, the magic that you will do is going to be boring. And if you are lacking something, magic will very rapidly highlight it for you. So you either address it or you just quit magic because
It's true.
it's very, no, magic has no mercy at all. You can be
Yeah,
blind
I
about
love
it
it.
and not, don't see it, but it puts you right in front of you. So I got frustrated and I still do. But I remember very vividly in my early years in magic, like every 6 months or every, yeah, something like that, I would just see someone perform or had a conversation with a magician, and thinking, okay, either if I start doing things correctly or I quit this thing because this is bullshit. I mean, I'm not going anywhere doing the thing that
Totally.
that I'm doing, and it happened many times. And the moments that I uh, learned the most were those kind of moments. I mean, by putting a show and having success, you don't learn anything. It is by failing and by getting frustrated that you just find your ways.
I love it. And, particularly the part that's maybe interesting me more is not only obviously you're not the first person to bring up failing, but it's
No.
interesting that you bringing up frustration. We feel that when someone says like failure is a part of development, that we're supposed to like fail and not feel bad about it, right? This failure, it's part of the process. But you're saying like, no, it's not. It's the opposite. Instead, when you fail and you're like really trying to grow past something, it's obviously a frustrate, right? Like the emotion is part of it as well, right? It's not just that it didn't work. It hurts too,
Yeah, but
which I think plays a big role. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about the journey. So you started doing magic sort of as a replacement or as
yeah,
a different direction from music, and then what happened from there? Did it immediately become a career for you?
not at all.
Were you doing other? How did it develop towards what it is now?
Yeah. So first of all, my way of entrance to magic was the intellect. I mean, I was just coming up with ideas and kind of puzzle solving
Hmm.
and many things that are required to be a good magician. Where I was lacking of them, like any relationship with the stage,
Yeah,
communication and body communication. Actually, thinking on perspective, I think, and actually, I'm getting back to music these years, and I've learned a lot with magic on those regards. So that was my entrance in magic, and
interesting.
as I was progressing in magic, magic just put in me challenges like you have to get good at this and this, or you just do something else, and it started like that. I was able from the very beginning. I was good with the hands and coming up
Hmm.
solutions to routines. But of course, my magic criteria was not existent at the very beginning. How it cannot be otherwise? So I just started to study books and meet magicians. I'm very lucky, super lucky that I live in Madrid, where it's one of the most rich cities of the world, if not the most regarding close-up magic, and in general in Spain, you can in
Mm-hmm.
any city you can find a very knowledgeable or genius or very talented magician that you can learn from. So it was always the case that I was in the room and there was many of people better than me in magic in that room. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
good thing. So and early on, I was conscious of my limitations. I just before performing for lay people I just started getting into magic contests, and it was big crowds and very demanding audiences from the point of view of the. Now that I look at it, is I think it's ridiculous because I mean I don't think it's the best way to approach the magic. It's just the way that I did. So I just
Right.
prepare some close-up acts. I learn a lot, failed many times, and little by little I was seduced to perform for lay people
Mm-hmm.
in venues, and I just uh, eventually get competent at it. And
Can I ask? I know we're probably going to talk more about the magic, but just I'm interested. When did it become like work or career?
from day one, I spent all of my time with magic. It was
Love it.
yes, like actually it was much more time with the deck in the hands back then that I am now. Like I don't know, 10 hours a day. I was finishing
Mm-hmm.
my career, my engineering studies, and I was just
Mm-hmm.
doing with working with the deck all the time. Not all the time was useful or good my practice, but I was with the deck all the time. And eventually, I mean, it got much more serious and much more uh, meaningful to me. I just got introduced to many magicians that I can call my friends now, like Gaby Pareras or Alberto de Figueiredo, Miguel Ángel Gea, Kiko Pastur, and
Mm-hmm.
many others that just show me how deep is this rabbit hole, and it just
Mm-hmm.
it's a basic part of my life, magic, because it's my way to understand myself better and my way to put my talent in good use. So it's quite relevant right now for me.
I wanted to shift the focus and start talking about, some of the major topics. And one of the things that I'm struggling with is this problem with making my magic emotional. And, I come from a very analytic background, an analytic perspective. And, that's how I've presented everything. And then recently I've been presenting things in sort of funny ways. I'm realizing more and more that things that are presented in emotional ways and impactful ways
Mhm.
are the things. And that something being funny or something being intellectual, that's maybe a part of it, but really you're going for impact. So I'm struggling right now because I'm like, how do you get impact? Like mentalists get impact because people feel that they're like reading them,
Mhm.
right? Or, someone who contacts the spirits, they get impact, right? So I'm like, what do I have to do to get impact? Do I have to go that far? So that's where I'm struggling. And so talk to me a little bit about impact.
Okay, I will gladly talk about that. From my point of view, first of all, you talk about impact or you talk about meaning. In the end, both things will, will be similar at some point. But from the very beginning, I
Right.
will just say, I mean, I won't say it's a good idea just to make pretend the spectators that you have real powers. I don't think it's either
Right.
meaningful because it's actually untruth, or
Mm-hmm.
but from the first of all, from the point of view of impact, magic as a discipline, art, you have some rules and some knowledge and things that are principles that you can follow that will make your magic more with more effect. One of the references Arturo de Ascanio, in my case, Juan Tamariz or Gaby Pareras, from the point of view of getting impact with your magic, like a very strong reaction. There's things that you can do, like from the technologic point of view of the magic. I mean, put the best possible technologies and uses to make your magic more
Mm-hmm.
impact. The other thing is meaning. You talk about emotion. I will tell you what I don't like. I don't like when a magician put out an act or a speech or a routine, which is deliberately trying to touch some strings on the audience.
Mhm.
like I'll talk
Mhm.
about this sad thing or these
Mhm.
things that is supposedly beautiful, and it's not necessarily meaningful for the performer in the first place,
Mhm.
and it's
Mhm.
just the bad thing is 'cause sometimes it works and people some level they react and they even cry or whatever, but for me what I like, what it moves me is when things are honest. You know, I don't know if you know this act by Miguel Muñoz, the actual Grand Prix
Mhm.
winner of FISM, Stage Magic. Is for me is the most beautiful magic act that I've seen. And I can cry easily. I've seen it many times, and I can cry easily by seeing it. And it's very beautiful and meaningful, and it's silent. There's a very impact, a very strong metaphor, and it's beautiful in each and every sense. No words said, but other things they can move me are not necessarily in that package. I mean, in my case, I try to be honest and talk about things that are meaningful to me and that are interesting to me. And maybe I will say something that has a very deep meaning for me, not uh, in a non-chatlant way. I mean, in a low-key way. But it's meaningful
Right.
for me, and I think it'll transcends delivers to the audience truth about me and about what I'm doing. I don't necessarily say something just to get an effect, a certain effect on the spectator. I just say it because it's meaningful for me.
So let me ask. So I know it's a silly question because it's not the first conversation of somebody sharing the importance of expressing yourself. But
Mhm.
I'll just say, like, to play devil's advocate here. Let's say I know that people like, I don't think that I read minds, but I know that people really go crazy when I read minds, but they don't care when I tell them about my dog. So what is to keep me from trying another thing, not my dog, but tell them about my view of the world or my this, my that, versus going with something that, maybe I don't love, but I know it's going to get an incredible reaction. I'm just giving an example, but I'm saying,
Mhm.
like why go for keeping on working on trying new things that I'm trying to express that I like when I know what the audience likes and they're the ones coming to watch the show.
Hmm. Yeah. When a real authentic connection with the audience is built, either in magic or music or any other art form, is when the artist do something that is meaningful to him, and spectators find it meaningful as well. So there's a real connection
Mhm.
there. If I do something and I know it's going to work because I'm going to touch this string and this string, just like radio formula music on radio,
Mhm. Mhm.
then it's not that relevant that they react to it because that's what they do.
You
Is
don't.
is is
Right.
is is nothing magical about it. It is magical when it's the other
Mhm.
way. When but that doesn't mean that you have to just ignore the the spectators' interests and to just deliver your own thing and don't care if you
Right.
pour the whole. No,
Right.
nothing to do
Right.
with that. No, not
Right.
at all. But for instance, regarding mentalism, that you just been put it
Yeah.
a I'll tell you two things that I don't like at all. One thing is when a mentalist just play with the idea of a relative or familiar death and just use that as a resource to provoke a certain
Yeah.
emotion. It's untruth, and
Right.
it works, but I think it's offensive, and it's something that you shouldn't do.
Interesting. Interesting.
It's not your prop. Someone
Yeah.
else's emotions regarding to that.
Like, deceased. Yeah. Someone's deceased. Someone's relationship with their deceased grandfather
Exactly.
is not your prop. That's
You
interesting. That's
exploiting that, I
interesting.
think it's not moral. I think magic has some morals as anything has, and I think that cross the line. Another thing that I don't like at all is when a mentalist, for instance, is guessing pieces of information, and when the mentalist is able to guess a number or a letter, something that are
Hmm.
meaningless for the spectator. So of course, it's impossible that you know which number is the people is thinking, if it's 12 or 89. But ultimately, it's
Right.
meaningless. So magic is not about that. For me, magic is not. There's two things that magic is not about having real powers. That's the first thing I know for sure. I mean,
Right. Right.
so you could actually have real powers and deliver a very shitty show that no one is interested in. That's the first thing.
Hmm.
And the second thing is, so you have to make it interesting and entertaining and meaningful. And the other thing is, you don't have real powers. You don't have it. You don't have them. You have to use your intellect, and you have to use what I think is actually a celebration of the intellect in the spectators, because magic works because people are intelligent. It's the other way around.
Right.
Eh, so
Right.
it's that our brain is so efficient and that make us able to operate in the world, filtering information all the time, and it is exactly that what we use to create illusions. Illusions that the ultimate goal of the illusion is not the illusion in itself, but what you want to communicate with that, right? Magic is in when I don't respect those things, I just feel bad about it. So
I love the idea about, not really being interested in the powers. I also love the idea of, not using, borrowing like a deceased parent or something for
mhm,
emotions, because it's up to us to sort of, not borrow those sort of things. But one of the phrases that you said that really excited me is you said that part of the job of the artist, or, the role of the art, it's working when there's the connection between something the artist is affected by, and something that the audience is affected by,
exactly.
right? Like that's the sweet spot. So you can talk about things that just you like and nobody will
Mhm.
care. You can talk about things that just they like and they'll notice that you don't care,
Yeah,
Or if you find that middle, that way where you're expressing something that's important to you and it's important to them, that's when you start, ringing. That's when the bells start
yeah,
ringing. And that's why when you see stuff that's dated, from so many years ago, you can feel that it's different just because you can feel that probably it was for a different
yeah,
audience, and they probably felt different things, and you're not connecting with the magician on the same way that the audience was connecting with. You know what I mean? So I really like that definition, or that expression of an artist where it's the connection from both the artist and the
yeah.
audience.
People are interested in people. Is the thing that interests most. So
Right.
anyone is potentially interesting as long as he is the truth and honest about what he's putting on the stage. And
Yeah.
so it's not that I have to find explicitly the things that the spectators will be interested in. I'm
Hmm.
interested in these things, and I will just talk about them and react about them. For instance, just not put an example. I have a real issue with my ability to deal with chaos. I'm a very not order person, and it also comes with
Hmm.
good things and bad things. This is in my show. Is the balance is of that from even
Hmm.
from the laces that I wear to the effects that I do when I fill the stage with cards and dices and it's a mess and there's an order in the mess and I talk about it and it is present at many levels on the performance and it's true because it's my personality. When I was
Right.
trying early on, trying to be in magic, you have to put little, you have to be very ordered in a small scale to be able to
Hmm.
deliver a magic effect. But when I tried to be ordered in the way of handling the objects, and for me it was so forced, and I wasn't able to do that, and it was a conflict very noticeable there. So I just understood that I had to put my real personality on stage, and now it works. There's some order to it, and there's it's truth, and it's worked for me, and it's interesting for the people because they see is for real, and maybe they don't they get it at some more deeper level, but yeah, it's not manufactured. It's natural.
And it's also, talking about comparing that to a magician who says, like, write down the name of someone who you love, and then is the, talk about the different way you can affect people. One is a, something that's very true and a message, and one is, purely for the reactivity. So it's very interesting that you brought up that other notion. So let me ask. Let's say that I said, okay, so I'm convinced I want to do magic, more magic about what I really like and what I
Mhm.
care about. So, what are some of the actual tools? What can somebody do if they say, okay, so I care about, I don't know, I care about young people being creative. I think that young people aren't creative enough. I think young people should be creative, and I'd love to inspire in my magic, or I'd love to talk to young people to be more creative. So what does someone do? Do you take a message like that and try to find magic that fits, or do you find magic that you like and then say, what do I want to use this magic to tell the world? Like, how do you start putting you into your
Uh,
magic?
I can only talk about my experience, of course. In this case, the thing you
Hmm.
propose is, I think, is a little bit too general. Like, uh,
Right. It was a
it will be
silly
like
example,
my
but
struggle on doing creative things. It could be
right.
a plot. It could be the introduction of some things. You can actually, for real, if that's for real, that means you have been struggling with it, and you have some things you have been tried, and some probably didn't work, and you can just put a three-phase routine, just uh,
Hmm.
uh, representing that, like the first thing you came up with, like a year
Right.
after that, and how it ends. Of course, it has to be like 100% real. I mean, you won't do the things that you did when it was wrong in the first phase, but you can, in a way,
Right.
impregnate this idea and come up with.
Right.
That's, that's when I
Three
that's
phases.
something that comes to mind. In my case, I've been interested in the idea of the free will, and I've been struggling with
Right.
this concept, and if we have it and if we don't have it, and what does it mean, and blah blah blah. And it's just very easy to put it on an effect, on just a Hopfinser's effect. You put a card, they
Yeah.
name one. I put a card on a glass. I have someone name a card, and it's a card. And after that, I talk about it, and I said, "This is terrific. I mean, either you don't have free will, and you just live in a very narrow reality because this, or maybe it's that your intuition combined in mysterious ways, if managed to get the card right, and I leave it there. I doctrine
Hmm.
no one on my views. That's another thing. I mean, you can easily tell when someone is trying to put a message, like, in your head, which is, I think, is not very good. It's much more interesting to put a question on to arise awareness to some topic, rather than just impose your view on anything. That will be the wrong approach.
So there's a few different interesting things there that excited me. So the first is the one that you just said about, sort of making it subtle, right? Is like, you don't want to start a magic trick and say, this trick should make you think about free will. And a lot of magicians do that. I was recently reading about a joke about it where I think it was a tweet of Derek Delgadio, and it was a joke. It was like, when I was a kid, I loved this. And now I do magic. So I wanted to combine those two things. And here is this. And like you do see it a lot in magic, and it's very funny because you see that, but like all art, it should be more subtle. Like you think about someone walking around a museum, they don't look at it and they go, this painting tells you about this. You go,
Exactly.
oh, okay, well, there it is. Okay, and they keep going. That's not what it's about, right? And that's what makes it interesting. So I really liked that aspect of it, and about
Yeah, and when we do that all the time, and even in the effects itself. I will give you an example. I think you will like it, of Gabi. Regarding, for instance, the coins through the table. Everyone just ignore a very crucial moment in the spectator's mind regarding the coins through the table. We just call the coins and just start performing the routine, and we just forget about
mhm,
one of the most important moments is the moment the spectator realize that it is about the coins going through the table. That moment when they just have
mhm,
the idea of what is going to happen, this thing. We just say, and we put, and just
mhm,
we don't use it, and it has a very potential, a very strong
yeah,
dramatic potential. We just say it has 4 coins, and they're going to pass through the table and go on, and that's the first one. And no, and it's much more interesting just to insinuate it, and when
just like in the over the course of the next 2 minutes, I'm gonna push
exactly.
4 coins through this spot in the table. Like
That's
that's
stupid,
crazy.
and it's much more
Yeah.
effective just to do your gestures, and when you put your hand below the table, like touching it from above, from behind, people are thinking like, what?
Hmm.
And they realize, oh, this is going to happen, and it happens. And also, when
Right.
you perform a four
Right.
phase routine, in this case with the coins to the table, that's also Gabi's thinking. You are always presenting from the perspective of the magician, who knows that there's going to be 4 phases, and not
Hmm.
experiencing the thing in the present time. When you do an oil and water effect, when you do a phase of the oil and water, every phase should be like the end of the thing. Like, this is it, and not like, and they separate.
Right.
But you do like, and you do like, you're thinking always on the end.
So that's one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, which is squeezing out the emotion from the moment and from the spectator. So I'll give you one little minor
Hmm.
example, and this is something that I've been playing with and talking a lot about. Over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, I've got an opportunity to do a lot of close up shows where people are sitting with me around a table. And in that time, I've grown to love effects that deal with suspense because I love that tension building. Things like counting down to a
Hmm.
number or slowly turning over a card or all of this different stuff. And I find myself, in the final moments of an effect when the revelation is happening or when really stretching out those moments because that's when people are on the edge of their seat. And that's, like that's the sweetness of the effect. And then as that's been happening, I've been discovering other important moments that need to be stretched out and slowed down and made more impactful, and you're talking about this coins through table as an example, and there are so many moments here which are worth, like you're saying, like explaining that they're going to
Uh-huh.
go through the table, or not explaining or not making it clear in some way that there are going to be four of them. You are leaving free emotional value for the spectator on the table unused. It's like you watching a hockey game versus you hearing that the score was 3-0. The emotions that are missed by not addressing certain things is really great and is very
Yeah.
impactful. So talk a little bit about like stretching these emotions or making parts of your magic more impactful or memorable, or whatever this quality is that we feel, that feeling when everyone's all together, everything's all, how do we make more of that?
Yeah, I mean, the approach for me, in general terms, is also Gabby's approach regarding to the spectator. The spectator has to create the thing. There's no better version of a routine that the routine that is happens on the spectator's head. You don't have to deliver to the spectator the thing finished. You have to put the means so the spectator builds it all the time. So those moments are created by the
Right.
spectator. If you just waste and just say like this is about this, you just spoil it.
Right.
You have to
Right.
of course say what I have to say, so induce that idea on the spectator, and the spectator to come up with that. No? There's an example of a routine that I do when there's a card to the case routine. A card is selected and it appears in the case, right? And I only do it because one moment the card disappears. Is not there. What I do is just flick after before it disappears. I just flick the case, and it just woo, go flying and arrives anywhere. And the moment I do that, the
Mhm.
spectators, because how the routine is built, know completely for sure that the car is going to be found in there, and they come up with that. I don't
Right.
explain it. I don't. And when they have this
Right.
idea, of course I reveal after that that the car is no longer where it's supposed to be, and they of course they know that. And you don't have to convince them. It's their idea, and they are of course it's
Mhm.
not there, it's on the case. And my job as a magician is to go and satisfy that need that they have now, and just produce the car from the case. And it's so satisfying for them because it's their idea. If I will fail to do that, and if the car is not there, they will hate me. They will say like, you spoiled something very beautiful. You're
Right.
very
Right.
lame magician.
Right.
You spoil it.
Right.
And it's the opposite approach to just to convince. Hey, this card is going to appear in your case, in your hand, and you're trying to
Right.
to
Right.
write to place totally different by doing that.
Well, yeah, well, it's like it comes from, like the audience watching it and following along step by step. And I really like the way that you're saying like that the spectator creates it. And magicians always talk about how the magic takes place in the brain of the spectator, but one of the things that, that it reminded me of when you were saying the spectator creates it is it reminded me of a teacher. And I always talk about, the commonalities between teaching and magic. I think they're
Yeah.
so related. And one of the reasons why I think that they're so related is because a good teacher can see it in the eyes of their student when they say something that the student didn't understand it. And you know that because you'll hear teachers say something and the student goes, "Uh-huh," and then the teacher goes, you just said but did you mean or you don't know? And this student goes, no,
Yeah.
I don't actually don't know what you're talking about. And a good teacher knows how to do that. And it's the same thing with magic, which is that if someone's lost on one point of the step, or they miss it, or they don't get to infer the next A to B, B to
Yep.
C, C to D, then they've missed it. They've not understood. It's not clear. And of course that means you don't get the final effect. But to me, I always think that, like, the best magicians are some of the best teachers, or would be some of the best teachers if they aren't already. And it's so obvious why, in the terms that you said it, which is like the spectator has to create the magic, and the plot that's happening and what's going on in the magic goes on in the brains of the
Yeah, yeah,
spectator.
yeah, totally, totally agree with that. The thing is, as there's another revolutionary concept by Gabi. It's true that the spectator creates the effect, but also magician responsibility to create the spectator. Actually, the psychological state
Right.
of the spectator
Yeah.
required to understand, and you have to walk them through your thing. Just as a teacher, I mean,
Hmm.
it's the teacher's responsibility to don't get anyone lost and just to follow step by step. So
Hmm.
everything that you say is meaningful, and everything that you do is meaningful for that purpose. So if you need a certain spectator, I mean, it's not a good excuse just to say, nah, the spectators were like not interested in this, and they were just like not in a good mood. It's the moment are there is up to you. It's your responsibility to say what you have to say, to imply what you have to imply, to get the spectator on the mood required to experience the thing that you want them to experience. So it's also your responsibility. That's the role of the magician.
Yeah, and I like that you pointed that out, because it makes it seem like, oh, it's their job to figure it out, but it's obviously not. And I like the way that you said it. And it's always weird to talk about the subject, but I like the way that you said it when you said, we need to build the spectator. And it's always weird to talk about that subject, how I'm crafting the way that my spectator experiences what I do. And the reason I'm saying that it's weird is because every spectator is different. Everybody is unique. I want them to experience it in
Hmm.
their very own way, and I want that to affect them in their very own way. And also, I hope they come up with the exact lines of reasoning and moments as I want them to, as everyone else in the room does, all at the same time. So those two things kind of play against each other. But I like that you brought it up to sort of say, like, you need to build the way in which the spectator is doing that. And that doesn't coincide, or that doesn't clash with the idea that maybe each spectator is going to experience your magic differently from their background and their
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
perspective
Of
and so
course,
on.
everyone is different, but we also are very similar in very much ways, and we react
Hmm.
the very
Hmm.
same way to many things. So of course, every individual is a world, is a universe. You cannot control that, but as
Hmm.
long as you are aware that it's your responsibility to induce a certain reach for a certain generic spectator, generic state of mind, you
Hmm.
will get there. If you think it's not your responsibility, there's not a chance that you can do that,
Right.
right? For instance,
Right.
imagine, and that's something you have to sacrifice always. That's about that in life and in magic. Imagine that you have a very good gag that works all the time and people laughs a lot. Maybe
Mm.
it comes to a point that you may have to sacrifice that gag because it doesn't induce the proper psychological state for the next thing that you want to do, or even a complete routine that it's
Hmm.
perfect. It's a work. It's just a smash on the head of the spectators and they are blown away. But sometimes you get to the conclusion that uh, it's not what you have to do
Hmm.
for the biggest goal, right?
Totally. And that happens time and time again. It's happening to me right now, where, like, one of my favorite routines
Yeah.
that I love to do, it's starting to become a problem with the other things, and it's very frustrating. I'm watching my magic sort of clash with each other and coming with problems, like you were just talking about. So it's very interesting because I'm seeing that stuff happening. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, which we don't talk a lot about on this podcast, but I can hear it in what you're saying, as well as, obviously, I know some of the background we've learned from. But I want to talk a little bit about the plots of magic, and that's something that I think takes, you either need to learn it from the right sources, or it takes years and years and years to sort of discover it. But the same way that movies or TV shows have predictable or
Mhm.
repeatable plots, like cop shows have plots, or children's shows have, a repeatable plot, or even if it's not repeatable, maybe it's one of only 20 things. They find the bad guy, they don't find, or whatever. Magic also has plots, and that is unique from other art forms. And
Mhm.
I'll give you an example, which is uh, uh, let's say an
Yep.
ace assembly, right? So there's so many things in an ace assembly which is native to magic. Obviously it uses concepts in theater, but it's native to magic. Like the plot is there's four aces. After you do the first one, and maybe after you do the second one, it starts to become apparent that all of them are going to do it. After you've made them all disappear and you've made a gesture, a movement, it starts to become apparent that they're all in this new pile, or this center pile, or whatever. And these different aspects that I'm pointing out are important features of plot in magic. And when someone's building their own magic, it's hard to know about all of the different plots, right? That's just one, and there's many different plots. So talk a little bit about like the importance or the understanding, or how to, the same way that theaters can take so many different forms, that there's magic that can take so many different forms, but they're repeatable and we see them over and
That's a great
over
question.
again.
Actually, I'm struggling with that all the time, and I'm studying plot and structure from theater and from script, just to get to get more knowledge about it. But in the
Right.
case of magic, it is the case that every classic and every good effect is not only the effect; it has to resonate with a deeper idea. In this case, the reunion, you can see the symbolic multiple meanings
Right.
that arise about that idea, right? And they are not
Right.
explicit; they are implicit, or in a torn and restore
Mm-hmm.
thread. Uh, and
Right.
of course,
Death, rebirth,
exactly.
regeneration.
If you take a blue card and tear it in four pieces, and those four pieces change to red back, it is you're not appealing to anything. So it's meaningless, and so that's not a good. That's not a good plot.
That's
Yeah,
interesting. That's interesting. And I'm so glad that you brought, that was what I was trying, that's what I was hoping that you would, you would bring up, because it's so hard. Like how do you spot that as a young magician? You say like, "Oh, I came up with a different twist for the fourth phase of this." And then they show you, and you're like, "What? Like this, I don't understand." Like
yeah,
it's out of whack, and it's hard to explain it, and sometimes I can't come to the words. It's like, doesn't this feel weird to you? Like, you can't figure out
yeah,
a way to explain it.
yeah. I mean, it happens all the time, and there was a time when I thought many of them were very good ideas. Like when you make a this
Mhm,
twist, for instance, the one with the card traveling to the case. If I don't remove the card from the
mhm.
case, it's just a boomer. So imagine that I just it's not there, and there's a message, and it says, "It is in my pocket," and it will be like mm, it's
Oh,
just.
right, right, right.
But there's many examples you can see. Or for
Yeah,
instance, the triumph routine. You can do. There's a triumph routine, and at the end it changes the the color of the back, or maybe
right.
or you have the deck completely in order. That's actually something you can use, because maybe you can manage to make those two things talk about the same thing. But sometimes just adding
Mhm,
a complete order of the routine, the deck is a strong effect, of course, but it doesn't appeal to what you're proposing. There's many examples. It happens a lot also in coin magic. Coin magic is terrific when you have a Chinese coin and a silver coin and a brass coin, and they'll just start doing fancy stuff. There is meaningless, and it's too much information. A rule of thumb that I have for
mhm,
a clarity of effect is that the spectator has to have the least amount of information in the head to understand what is happening. And if you ask to the spectator to remember that there's a Chinese and a brass coin, and the brass coin is in this hand and the Chinese is in the other, you get lost. You
mhm,
get totally away from anything you want
mhm.
to. to communicate.
Yeah, I like to think like if somebody if like they left the show and they're like wow, and someone was running by them in the streets and they said quick, quick, tell me where'd you go? I have to what did you see? If they can't be like the magician took out the coins and there was four of them, but then there was three and one was under my watch and then the other one had changed the colors and it was even me joking about that isn't realistic because really the spectator will say I
Uh-huh.
don't know, there's some whole bunch of stuff with coins. He was a very good magician. I don't know, it
Uh,
was very cool, right? Because it's so it's so like unbelievable, not unbelievable, but it's so unexplainable or relatable, and it's like you're saying it's
it's
almost not
actually
simple enough for
it's
the
it is.
audience to
I think that
understand.
it just came to me that it's like the what we talked before. What you have to have is have the spectator give the spectator the tools and the means to just to build the thing, right? And doing that is like doing the pieces of a
Right.
puzzle to a spectator that it doesn't belong to any puzzle. It's just pieces. So they just like I cannot
Yeah.
do something anything with this because it doesn't mean anything. There's no way I can just restructure the information that
Right.
you're giving me in a way that is meaningful because
Mhm.
there's no meaning there.
And something that's worth pointing out because it's difficult to see is that even though you get a reaction, it might not be
Yeah.
right. I could go on stage, let's say I was a
Hmm.
comedian, okay? And comedians know this all the time. One of the reasons why people laugh in comedy is because they're
Yeah.
trying to release. It's a release. If you build up tension, they laugh and you release it. Any good comedian will understand that not every laugh
Hmm.
is a good laugh, right? And not every laugh, never mind like it being a good laugh the way they feel about you or it being a good laugh like they could have laughed harder. But, you start to think about, they laughed, but does this help complete what I'm trying to say? Does this add, or is this just like, a loose joke, a loose bit, or is this just, and what I'm trying to say is just that, like, if you're doing a fourth phase or a 19th phase to your routine and it's
Mm.
getting a response,
No.
that's not a good enough reason to say, well, it makes sense, like mine gets a response. So what could you be talking about, people? Like that, I don't know what you're saying. Like, if it didn't work, I wouldn't do it, right? And I think that it's more nuanced than that. Like a good movie, like you can fill it with cool special effects and car crashes, but if people don't care for the characters that are sitting in the cars, like they won't care. Or, the more you make them care for the people sitting in the cars, the
Yeah.
more they would care. So just wanted to bring that up. And, I'd love to hear you touch on, that how like you could be getting a reaction, but that it could be not the right one or not the best one or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It happens all the time, and I struggle with that. For instance, I'll give you an example. There's a routine that I do that I've done thousands of times. When someone asks me to do something, I will do a sandwich effect, and the signed card will appear in the wallet, right? And I do it, and
Mhm.
it is just that I feel bad about it, and I have to think I feel bad about this thing, and I realize that that routine that doesn't mean anything to me. It's pure. I'm looking for the pure reaction of the spectators, and in the end, and that's
Mhm.
also a very important thing. Is not about the spectator in a way that you have to do what you have to do, and what is meaningful to you. And even though they like it, it doesn't mean that you have to do it. I mean, when they leave, I'm still with me, and I have to deal with me, and it's much more important that than what his idea or opinion of what happened. There's a quote by Alan Moore that I like a lot. That it says that the spectator doesn't know what they know, what they want. If they would do it, they would be the artist. So that's also. I mean, it's not that to feel like pretentious, but I think that's the case. I mean, I'm supposed to know what I'm doing, and I'm supposed to be the one deciding what it's going to be and what's going to happen, and what the experience should be like. And the ultimate word is not the spectator like it or not. Is that's not
Yeah.
relevant.
It's very funny. You're like, it's interesting, right? You're like, I read the books, I watch the videos, I do the magic. What do I care what you think? But I love it, and I like the idea that it's in our hands to express what we want to, and also one of the things that you just brushed over there, but and it's obviously not true for all people, but when you're doing magic that is meaningless or that produces a reaction and then maybe later down the line an outcome that you don't want, or whatever the case may be, how you feel about the material that you do plays a really important role. You know, I had a really interesting
Hmm.
conversation a few years ago. My magic show was mentalism heavy, and I did a tour with it. It was just the show had a lot more mentalism in it. And after the show, there was always one or two people that came to me and said something. We had a conversation about mentalism or body language or something that made me uncomfortable, so uncomfortable that I stopped doing it. Like I
Hmm.
stopped doing that style of magic. And some people agreed with me, obviously, and then some people would say to me, they would say like, but that's just one or two people after the show. Like everyone else is really enjoying it. Don't worry yourself about the one or two people. Like there's 99 others or 1,000 others who are loving it, who you don't have to have this kind of conversation with, whatever. And I just thought to myself, I don't know, but it
Hmm.
doesn't make me feel good. And the way that you said it makes it best, which is, it's not that it doesn't make me feel good when I'm having the conversation, is that it doesn't make me
Yeah,
feel good when I'm sleeping that night and the week after and the month, or when I'm thinking back on it, or when I have to live
exactly.
with the magic that I do, and never mind how I feel about it, but maybe how I compare it to something that I could have done. And I'm like, oh, what if I would have done something that was more authentic? And those people came to me after the show and they said something to me that was more authentic, and then I could talk to them about
Yeah.
something that I actually cared about, and I didn't have to bullshit about the way that their eye winked when they thought of the number seven. So, but again,
Sure,
that's
sure,
just a,
sure.
a
That's great.
personal example for me. But I love that you brought up that like you have to deal with
Exactly.
how you feel when you sleep at night, or however that is, because it does play a really big role. And it goes back to what I was talking about before, where I was saying like, I don't really like to do this type of thing,
Mm.
but it gets a big reaction. So why don't I just do it? And one of the reasons is that because if you don't want to do it, it's not going to feel good, and magic's not going to
Mhm.
feel good to do, and this is not going to be fun, right? Like, and I love that part, which is like you have to express the sort of things that make you want to do magic and talk about magic
Yeah.
forever, right? And do more of it, and not grow frustrated at the results and what you're saying. So I really
It's
like that
endless.
part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you have to. I mean, what is the goal for you? I mean, if the goal is to do what it gets the bigger reactions, or it changes completely the way you would select things to do,
Hmm.
and ultimately it's just that is one feels bad about it when it's with experience that you shared. I mean, you
Hmm.
are left with the thing to live through it. So it's it's yeah. So
Yeah, it's
it's
just
your
me
it's your
left. So
choice.
yeah, and even if and exactly, and even if I have a conversation with someone and they say that's not how you should
Okay.
feel, and I go okay,
Yeah.
and I go home and I go, yeah,
Exactly.
well, you're wrong. So
That's
that's how I
happened.
feel.
That happened, for instance, when you are not in the mood to do some magic, for instance, or you're
Yeah.
not comfortable in a certain environment. Someone says to you, "Hey, do something," and you're really like not in the mood, and you're like, and they push you like, "No, do
Yeah.
something. We're gonna like it." And it's like, I mean, you don't understand it. I mean, I can do something. You can feel good or bad about it, but I'm left with the thing afterwards. So I may be 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unhappy with the thing, how to develop it, and you may forget the thing that I'm going to show to you in 10 minutes. So it's not going to happen. I'm not going to do it.
But you know what? There's so much in what you just said, which is so like great. Part of the reason why you shouldn't perform when someone says perform right now isn't because of the experience right then. It's because of how you're going to feel afterwards and be
Mhm.
like, oh, that was not the right thing to do. And like, oh, I shouldn't have, and that plays such a big role. And like, obviously people talk about that stuff in other forms of life, right? Like when you say something to the wrong person and you regret it for weeks later. But you just talking about what performances feel like. And as I've become a full-time magician, like when you have a horrible show, one that really like pulls the rug
Yeah,
out from under you, like it's not the night that bothers you, like it's
yeah,
days. That's your whole everything, and you're like, what? So I want to thank you for talking about a lot of these topics about how magic is difficult for the magician, and how it's how these are different aspects that we have to struggle with and deal with and think about these results that come to the rest of our
yeah.
lives when we're
Exactly.
performing magic.
Totally.
The one of the
Hmm.
thing that I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk about this idea for like adding impact to your magic and adding meaning to your magic. So I love it. This, I don't want to say this new structure, but the structure that everyone can think to themselves like, let's take a magic effect. Magic effects sort of have innate plots in them, right? And then let's take one with an innate plot and let's be honest about how that plot or how something related or tangential to that plot has affected me. And let's be honest. But one of my like feelings is I always look at the different ways to
Mhm.
perform magic. And and to me I categorize them in three different ways once upon a time. And one was just the magic. There's no presentation, there's no anything. You just say, you name a number, you name a card, let's count the deck, your card
Mhm.
is at your number. Wow. The second option is doing it with an ability. So before I came here, I looked at you and I looked at you and I knew what card you were going to think and I knew what number you're going to think. Go ahead. Yes, that's the one. Yes, I got it. Here we go. Let's count it. And then the third one is to do something with an impactful presentation, something you're trying to say, something emotional. So have you ever felt like you're one in a million? Okay, well, this, the odds of this are one in whatever. Go ahead, name whatever, right? And with a presentation. So does focusing on the one where you're sharing something about yourself and doing a presentation, does that mean that you can't do the other types? Is there a place for other styles,
Always.
or like.
As different ways to approach magic as as persons, as people, right? You can be truthful to yourself. For instance, you could be, imagine that you found a very intriguing effect on a lost book, and that you found it by chance. Getting to that, reading that effect is such a experience. By performing
Mhm,
that routine, it would be much more meaningful that for a person that just see you performing it and they said, ah, cool, I'll do this, right? So you don't have to talk to anything deep idea to be truthful and to be authentic and to be real, right? uh, I could give you different examples of very different approaches to magic performing. You get, for instance, Juan Tamariz. He goes for the maximum impact
mhm,
and it's truthful to himself, and he will just
mhm,
destroy your brain by
mhm,
causing a conflict with you and with the reality that you are experiencing. Just touch this and you touch that and examine this and boom, and it's all the time
mhm,
just going for that. René Lavand, for instance, another genius, it was totally different. He would just, for me,
mhm.
René Lavand, the magic effects were the less important thing in a way. He would he would he will
Poetry.
exactly do the same. Not exactly, but he could just talk, and it'd be a great show without touching the deck, right? But
Mhm,
when he
mhm,
touched the deck, it was outstanding as well. Or you see Rosa Breki, for instance,
mhm,
outstanding act, and it's
mhm,
just like hard to define it. It's just a character. The focus is much more in the character than in the tricks and the routines or the effects. But the effects are great, and they are classics, and they are performed extremely well. But that's not what is important. And I don't think Rolf Tabrik is a psycho in his real life, but there's so many things that are so authentic by seeing him performing that it has to be honest in a deeper way by doing that, and it's very different. And also you can Gabi Paredes, which is very very hard to see him perform. Fictional magic
mhm,
approach. He would just put you an idea and let it happen. There's a routine, a beautiful routine. The color its flower is one of the most beautiful routines that exists. And he talks about dreams, and at the end, it talk about a story of a dream of a person going through a dream, through a paradise in a dream while dreaming, and someone gives that person a flower in the dream, and he would ask to the spectator, what happened if when that person wakes up, there's a flower in his hand, and that's what happened in the routine. And the flower is not a flower; it's cards that are in his hand. But that's the meaning. He wouldn't just have the cards examined, or it, no, it just it's that experience in that particular choice of words in that poem, which is a poem for
right.
of a poet, and the way to describe it. So there's, I don't know, there's I wouldn't in my life claim that I know how many ways to approach magic are, but
Of course.
uh, of course there's many. You don't have to sacrifice your personal view. That's a more important thing.
Of course. So there's a few things there that I want to highlight, and I really love that you brought that up because one of the problems that I get into is and I'm sure that a lot of people that listen to this do, is, I speak to a lot of different people who give a lot of different opinions and sway me a lot of different ways, and some people come on the podcast and their background is, or their love or their passion is in certain elements of fiction. They love things that are fictitious and dreamlike. So they love crystal balls, and they love talking about the future
Mhm.
and those sort of things. And to me, I've never liked that. I like math, I like puzzles, I like analysis, I like thinking about philosophy and problem, right? So I really like what you're saying, where there's obviously all of these different ways and there's all of these different options. And one of the things that someone can take from a lot of the things that you were talking about here is some of the main ideas, even if the specifics
Mhm.
are different. So for example, the importance of adding you and adding authenticity. Obviously, you could be a character
Mhm.
that is not who you are, but if you're doing magic that you care about, if you're expressing things that you enjoy, that
Yeah.
you have enjoyed in your life, that have meaning to you or have impact you, they will have impact to them, and all of these different ideas where you can get outside of the box, but thinking about the plot of magic and thinking about, you can get creative and you can get outside of the box. But I think that some of these concepts, and what really excited me, is some of these concepts are really universal. Adding the you to your magic, thinking about the plot that's in the effect and trying to pull that out, and different things like that. So I just wanted to sort of
Yeah.
highlight both sides and how you can open up to many different options, but also that this information or this idea of being authentic and being real is not, that's not for one style. This is for all of performing and all of entertaining, and authenticity is important, even if
Yeah,
it's hiding
exactly.
in there
Just
somewhere.
to give another example, I just saw a whole show of a very young Chinese magician, Ed Won, I think is the name. He performs in the,
Yeah,
yeah,
incredible.
and he will do
Yeah.
this classic card magic. You know all the routines,
Yep.
and move by move, and it's great and it's authentic, and the way he talks and his sense of humor, personal and classic, is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you do it, it's great, but it's not required to.
And what's interesting about Ed, and just to have an interesting comment about that, is it's funny because one of the words that really stuck out to me was authentic. But what's so interesting is what he's talking about in the, I'm assuming you're talking about the Magic Castle video, but what he's
Yep.
talking
Yeah.
about is another magician. He's talking about the history of other people. He's not even talking about him, he's talking about someone else. So what's
Yeah.
interesting is sort of what I was just saying, which is, you can see and you can find what he's authentic about. You can
Yeah.
see and you can find what he cares about. You can see it in his
Exactly.
eyes, you can hear it in his voice, even though
He's
the
totally in love.
topics, totally,
Yeah.
totally, even though the topics are not necessarily about him saying, this is who I am and what I think about the world, or this is what I'm trying to say, or what do you think about it? You know what I'm saying? So I love what you just said. He's in love, and you can
Yeah.
see it.
You can
And
see
it's
it.
like, how when you smile when you're at a wedding, because you're like, this is good, this one's gonna work out. It's like that when a magician is doing magic on stage. I love that idea. He's in
That's
love.
great. And the opposite thing to that will be like, and then I'm sure you've seen it many times. This kid that is just doing a poker routine and is talking about when he was a cheater on the Mississippi, and you're like,
Mhm.
no,
Like, were you ever a cheater on the Mississippi? That
no,
doesn't sound.
no,
You're 17. How could that be?
exactly, no, you don't have
Yeah.
that experience. But
Yeah. And that's part of it. And one of the biggest challenges in magic, one of the most one of the most difficult things is to realize that even though there's such this massive knowledge, massive wealth of information, the biggest difference that happens in a piece of magic, the biggest impact that happens, is
Mhm.
when it goes from a trick that you've seen or heard of or read about or thought about or whatever to the stage. The amount of time that you put in, the amount of work that you put in that area,
Yeah,
like the thinking, the effort, the writing, the rewatching back, the editing, that is where magic is created. And it's so hard to see that when we look at all the wealth of information and all of the magic that's being produced. It feels like magic is created when we put our credit card in to buy the next trick, or when we're reading the line of the book. It feels like that's when magic's being created, or when we're listening to the episode of the podcast. But it's not. Magic is
no,
created in the moments where you take all that information in, and then you sit down with your pen and your paper, and you wrote, or and like you were saying, and you're frustrated,
Yeah.
or and you have this incredible epiphany that it took 3 months of you scraping the pen against, you know what I mean? Like that is where magic is created. And I think that that's one of the hardest messages to get across in magic, because it doesn't feel like that. It feels like the information is out there and all you have to do is put it into reality. but
Uh-huh.
but the putting it into reality is where all of the everything happens.
Yeah, but there's a few things I would like to comment on that because there's many levels of analysis on that thing that you just said.
Hmm.
One is the actual magical atmosphere and the magical experience. It does actually has to be, like Gabi says, has to be built from scratch every time you perform
Every
magic.
time, yeah.
It's just potentiality unexpressed
Yeah,
otherwise.
yeah.
So you have to be there for real. That's what's the thing that make magic so meaningful. And you have
Hmm.
to build it, and it has to be authentic because it's new every time you perform it.
Right.
And but it's also true what you said. I mean, uh, the road that a routine has to travel to just arrive in the stage is and I think every routine has a life on his own actually. And when I come up with an idea, I don't feel like it's an idea of mine. Actually, it's much more
Hmm.
like an idea that I fished. I was there, and
Yeah.
I was just bright
I
and
was
sharp,
fishing and
and
it
just
bit the, yeah.
yeah, and just grasp it. And
I love
actually,
it.
the routine has transforms. Sometimes it's just the least of the times, very few modifications throughout the performances, but
Hmm.
sometimes this routine that kind of has a life of its own arrives to the optimum form, or and that stays there, and it doesn't
Hmm.
change significantly anymore. So just in a way a witness of you're a medium of that
Right.
process.
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
you're not the one creating anything.
Hmm.
Actually, that's the way that I like to see it. And it's a long, it takes a lot of time. And sometimes I try to put a routine on a show and it just doesn't stay. It's just, I cannot force it. It's just no.
And I think that part of that is that the lesson that every magician learns time and time and time again, is that they discover more work that they could have or should have or need to put in to a routine. Like the discovery, every magician says it's just not there yet, it's just not ready yet, or maybe they return to it and they say, you know what, I need to sit down and rewrite it. It always is going back to the drawing board. And it's just, I just wanted to bring that up because
Yeah,
the amount of work, that's what makes the impact, and that's what, the distance between the finding of the trick and the putting it on a stage
yeah,
is the most important. And
it's
there's so many
enormous.
ways that, yeah, it's enormous. So there's a few or a bunch of different wrap up questions now that we're nearing the end of the episode. So
Okay.
the first is, in order to keep the podcast going on for eternity, each guest recommends another guest. So is there somebody who we absolutely must have on the podcast?
Oh, there's many.
You can name however many you like.
Okay. I know you have actually already chat with many interesting people I'm glad I personally know. I would like to say Gabi Pareras, but he's not going to be able to talk English with you. So I will say I will name a couple of friends. You can chat with Luis Olmedo, for instance, is a friend that I was performing in the castle a couple of weeks ago. He's just a, a great magician and a very interesting guy. You will totally need to talk to Miguel Munoz. Miguel Munoz, this guy that I told you about, the actual, and also Hector Mancha, another very interesting guy, a former world champion, that also a good friend of mine does. So they have insights and the very his experience is you could talk. Oh, and also Mario Lopez. You have to talk to Mario Lopez. You did.
We did an
Okay.
episode with him. Yeah. But the other three are amazing. And
Okay.
and I, l- if I come to Madrid, can you do an episode with me, you and Gabby, and you'll translate?
Yeah, so sure. But Gabby lives in
Good
Barcelona,
deal.
so you have to give
You know what?
Barcelona,
I'll go to Barcelona.
and
I'll
I'll
go to
and
Barcelona.
I'll go to I'll go meet you in Barcelona.
Good deal. Good
Okay,
deal.
I will have to talk to
I'm
him
in.
before, but
No problem. No problem.
of
And
course,
listen, it's not. I'm not going tomorrow, so we'll. I have to still plan it. But that
all
sounds
right.
amazing. Okay. The next one that was awesome. And I love that. I love that it's now a group of people. The next thing is the something about 2018, 2019, and this is actually interesting. So one of the things that, or one of the moments that I saw you pop up again on my feed was this conversation about magic online and
Yeah,
exposure and whether or not it's okay. And I had a lot of opinions about it, so much so that there's an episode which is just me where I just talk about it because I have so many opinions about it. And I'm excited that I think we have a lot of similar opinions about it. But the question is, what is something in 2018, 2019 in Magic that you like and that you don't like?
I would say one thing: the director's Gaudio's show in and out of itself, outstanding thing.
Yeah,
I'm very
it's
glad that thing
incredible.
happened, and it is revolutionary at a level in Magic because it's doesn't never been done in that way before. I think it's very interesting thing. The discussion that you just talk about the now many people is concerned about the exposure of Magic in the on the media. Uh, I'm not that worried about that. I'm much more worried about the lack of good uh, Magic exposure in media and any other
Me
and
too.
so and my complaint was that many of the things that you see on media are not honest. And we have been talking about honesty and truth throughout all the
Hmm.
so just to pretended magic and just the I mean the use of things like special effects or stooges or just uh, very manufactured conditions or actors reacting in determinate way. I mean, I think it's bad, and the way to deal with to combat with that is just to put good material
Hmm.
on the media. I know the media, the TV or the video is not the most suitable media to 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 communicate magic. I don't think so, but it doesn't mean that they cannot happen. I mean,
Hmm.
many people have done that with success, like Terren Brown, for instance. I would love to open my
Hmm.
Netflix and see five or six one man magic shows theater, and that will think I would be good for magic in a way that people are aware of the the potentiality and the deep discipline art that magic is. I mean, I don't think people have a bad opinion of magic because they see a kid displaying a double leaf on YouTube.
I totally agree. And one of the interesting things that you address that I find that nobody is really addressing the way that that there isn't enough good quality magic lessons out there.
Yeah, there's actually a problem that it's important to address. Magic is a very special discipline because your view as a magician changes, and many times it changed not for the best. I mean, when you
Hmm.
are aware of the secrets on the, I mean, you as a magician are supposed to deliver an experience that, in a way, you are not able to feel anymore. So
Totally.
those memories of you, like when you saw Triumph for the first time, or when that guy did magic for
Right.
you for the first time, is maybe 10 years or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's they are so important
It's
to
gone.
keep
Yeah.
them. And in the first place,
Right. Right.
it's
Right.
important to have them. If you don't have them,
Yeah.
it's
So
it's
hard
so
to
hard.
replicate
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
so if the only contact you have to magic is by YouTube tutorials, by the time you are interested in go deeper, you may have lost uh, great opportunities, and you may
Right.
something that you cannot recover uh, ever.
Hmm.
So that's not a good thing. And also, but I think as you, I mean, it would be good to people teaching magic with respect and with sense of didactic understanding of what they are doing and
Yeah.
understanding of this that I just told you. You just cannot explain a double leaf to a guy and in the first 6 months on the
No.
first class or the second or the sixth class, because you're spoiling a lot of experience for that people.
Yeah.
So
And the same way that, like, when a young magician comes to our magic community, I know how I need to teach him magic, right? And I wish that those people existed online,
yeah,
right? Instead of whatever's happening now, like what you're saying, where you just look and you find the first thing you find is a double lift, and then you start doing magic with a bad weird double lift or something, and it's just
yeah, because they're the fight there on YouTube is just to get the most subscriptors and get the most flashy thing. You don't incentivize the work on the other side, and just the
mhm.
settle down the knowledge. I would like to be wrong, but probably it won't be a very massively followed account. Someone should just put up a good course on magic, like in this way. But is I mean, I don't think good this kind of good course is intended to the vast majority, because it's not what the vast majority, which is are looking on magic trick on
They're not
YouTube,
looking for it. They won't see it.
they're not looking for that. They just want
Nope.
to learn a trick, or just saw a trick and got curious and just Google it for a minute, and so there have to be things like that, and we don't have to be worried that they are not like uh, we don't have thousands and thousands of subscribers. But
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah. Actually,
I love it.
I have an idea to put up an advanced course on magic construction and method building, and my idea is to do it on stages, on chapters, and putting on problems and exercise for the people to work, and that where they will get value from the learning experience, and not by me explaining how good this thing that I came up with is.
I think it's fantastic,
So
and I think it's
we
like,
need
yeah.
projects
Go
like
ahead.
this, I think, but I don't expect to have
Yeah.
more than a few people interested in that project, actually.
Well, I think you'd be surprised, and I also think that the reason why, for example, this podcast exists is because in all of my time spent on the internet, there were just not enough people talking about theory,
That's right.
and I was like, okay. And so I think it's kind of what you're saying here, which is like where there's a blank space, which is good quality learning about so many different areas of magic online,
Yeah.
because magicians have been tying their hands behind their back saying, like, don't give away our secrets, and then people who are maybe not qualified to give away secrets are giving away secrets. And again, I have no problem with the secrets being given away. I have a problem with that it's maybe not the best people that should be teaching them. That's it. And I'm not even talking about anyone specific.
Yeah.
I'm just theorizing that the more of us are there, the better the top quality will be, and the better for young people coming into magic.
Yeah.
The last, or actually there's two more, but of the wrap up question. So the first is the best part or the highlight. So we've been talking for like an hour and a half. People, when they're listening to the podcast, they're doing other stuff. They're going for a walk, they're walking their dog, and we said a lot of different things. So each of us, first me and then you, are going to pick something from the episode that we think is the take home point, the number one highlight, so that if they can summarize this episode into one thing for themselves, what would that be? So to me, one of the highlights for me, one of the things that really stuck out is this idea of being
Yep.
authentic, and this idea of art being created between the authenticity and expression and meaning of the artist and the understanding of that expression, and also the internalizing of that expression and meaning and authenticity from the audience. And one of the things that I was always struggling with is which one of those to focus on, right? Like, should I focus on what I want to say, or should I focus on what they are coming here to see? Like, which of those two things? And the way that you put it, I thought was really game changing for me. It was a big take home point for me to try to say, like, no, the reason why magic works is when you're both on the same wavelength, when the
Mm.
thing that you want to say is the thing that is effective for them to hear,
Yeah.
or is resonant for them to hear. So that was a really, really important part for me. What was an important part for you?
Yeah, but I think that we we think it will be the very same thing. I mean, just to
Hmm.
resume it a little bit, if you performing magic, if people want to see you perform magic, doesn't get to know you a little bit more by spending with you what is supposed to be quality time, obviously you're doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong. So if people don't get a better idea of you as a person, of your uh, wishes or your worries or your to know more about you. So if
Mhm.
only they are left with the thing that you can do, the possible thing you can do with the ring or with the card, I think is not the proper way to advance in magic.
Hopefully people take that home with them from the episode and
Mhm.
take home with them figuring out how to really work with your audience, how to get that energy up to the same place. I loved what you said about what Gabby said, where like that magic feeling that we're talking
Mhm.
about, that needs to be rebuilt
Every
every
time.
single time. That needs to be built. And, you know, that's something
Mhm.
that I've never had put into words like that before. That also helps explain, you know, the feeling that I have before I step on stage to do a show, which is that this giant weight is on my shoulders to bring them up the steps and go down the slide and launch into the magic world,
Mhm.
you know, like without any bumps in the road. And that first, whatever you want to call it, 5 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever it is,
Mhm.
you know, that takes them on that journey, I have to execute that again. And like, to be honest, it is like I'm most worried about that part of the show when I have to move people into the world of magic and welcome them and rebuild that environment together. Once we're all there, the rest of the show is
Yeah.
my playground. So it's interesting because that idea where like I have to rebuild it every time, that really helps me understand that.
Why it's so heavy the weight.
Yeah, why exactly? Why so heavy before the show? And it's because like it's got to wind up perfectly, right? It can't miss a beat. So I really love that.
Exactly.
The last thing here is just plugs. So I know that you have a whole bunch of different magic products that have been released, but I know that a lot of them have blown my mind when I watched the videos when they were being released. So talk to
Mhm.
us a little bit about where people can find your magic if they're interested in buying some of it or learning more about it.
Okay. Actually, I didn't release many things. I put up a video
It was
with
one or two,
yeah, a
right?
video with six routines that I
Right, six
yep.
routines. Okay, that was what I was.
You can find it in the link through my website, but it is in Penguin and it is also in Art of Magic. But if people want to know me, they can just also access the web and my blog, where I've just been writing stuff for the past 2 or 3 years,
Hmm.
and hopefully I will release a few more things in the next months. But that's unfortunately I don't have many a book ready to refer to, but I'm there.
Well, you've got six videos, and you know I remember when I watched through
Hmm.
them that like when I watched through them, they looked incredible. And the last thing is now that you have. Now that you have all the magicians of the world listening to you, is there any last thing that you want to tell them? Any like word of wisdom or word of warning that you want to leave the magicians with?
Such a weight on my shoulder.
You listen. You can change them all right now. This is the.
That's my moment. No, I just want to encourage everyone from the people that are starting, just to put the best of them on the magic that they do. That it is irrelevant. It makes a difference to just put themselves and what is more valuable in themselves in the magic that they do. It makes a difference from and I've experienced that with myself many times. I've been doing things that I thought they were not will have an impact, and later on throughout the years, I get people saying to me, "This thing is very important for me because this and that, and this thing that you did." So it's the things that we do are really meaningful. So we have to have that responsibility and act accordingly.
I love that. And I love, you know, the amount that you spoke in this episode about the responsibility of the magician, both in this sense right now, you know, in the sense of like our responsibility to deliver the effect to the
Mm,
spectator and you know, just thinking about you know in the responsibility of the magician is about really how good of a job you do and how much work you put in and how much you put into
exactly.
it. So you know I love that, and I love that you brought up so many different things that touch on sort of the emotional aspects of magic, like you know responsibilities and like you know frustrations, and also some of the great joys that you get in learning magic and in and in watching magic, different moments. So, those parts, those emotion parts, that's what makes all of this so rich. So,
Great.
thank you so much for
Thank
coming on the
you.
episode and talking about some of my favorite
It's been a real
topics.
pleasure chatting with you.
Such a pleasure for me as well. And of course, a big thank you to everybody who has joined us and listened for another fun and incredible episode. And as always, we will see you next Thursday. Well, there you go, episode 143. I hope that you liked it, and I hope that you get to think about your emotional side with magic. So think about how you affect other people's emotions, how your emotions are in it, how much you care about your magic and what you're trying to say, and how much you expect your audience to care about your magic and what they're trying to say. I don't know if I will see you or you'll hear me between now and 2019, but I'd like to wish you a happy new year, a happy beginning of 2019, and it's going to be the best year ever, I think. 2018 was good, but 2019 is going to be really, really cool. So, thank you for being here. Thanks for being with us. Hope you liked the episode, and I'll see you in 2019. Peace.